Or no, but yeah, I just want to make sure I get home and help away from the kids.
I understand.
I appreciate it though.
That still is a long ride.
But yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. And there's fishermen.
He's got about 6 months after
that. You watch it. When did you call that?
They have oversight.
It's now 3:30. I'd like to call this January 22nd meeting of the Ways and Means Committee to order. And Lisa, I'm sorry, Lisa, were you ready?
Yep, we're ready.
Okay. Would you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Cross?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Hughes?
Here.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Here.
Commissioner Nash?
Here.
Commissioner Sabo?
Here.
Commissioner Skolnick?
Here.
Commissioner Wilkins?
Here.
Commissioner Darasinski?
Here. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the regular and closed session meeting minutes?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cross, supported by Philistine, okay. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. Is there public comment on any of the agenda items today? Seeing none, we'll move on to items for consideration. WM 13/01-04A. Now you may want to ask, we had an 04 on the last agenda, so we're adding A to separate those. A motion to approve the accounts payable.
So move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Cross, seconded by Mr. Mahoney. Are there any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. WM 13/01-5, approve the recommended changes to board policy number 2007-512.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Sable, seconded by Mrs. Rolestein. Any questions? Yes.
Just, I guess I just didn't understand what we are changing. Or is it more like a clarification, or?
It is a clarification. There's no change to the policy, it's outlining it
Okay.
and clarifying.
What exactly is it clarifying?
The debarment process and the payment of prevailing wage.
What is the debarment process? Can you explain that to me?
The debarment process is a process that bidders are responsible for informing the county on certain issues, and if they do not, as outlined in the policy, if they do not follow certain criteria, they can be debarred as vendors to the county.
I see, okay. And I have another question. What exactly does this policy do for the county?
This policy just outlines the responsible engineering and construction.
And what is the benefit of that to the county?
It has a requirement of oversight and involves different departments to follow their area of expertise when we have engineering or construction going on within the county.
Because I had 47 people contact me on the last week about prevailing wage. And I'd like to know what that does in a contract. Does it have, what does it do for a contract?
That is not the issue of this change, because there already is a prevailing wage ordinance that the county has. This is just clarifying how prevailing wage is paid.
But it says so explain to me what that actually means. The payment of prevailing wage under both state and federal law is an important thing. But why are we having it in here for the county?
Because it falls under the responsible engineering and construction contracting, because prevailing wage takes would take place under that policy of responsible engineering.
What is the benefit of prevailing wage to the county?
That would be an ordinance that was passed by the County Board of Commissioners. I cannot respond to benefits. It's a county board ordinance.
I'm not sure, but please correct me if I'm wrong, Ted. Prevailing wage is a requirement over and beyond our ordinance when you use federal dollars.
That's true, Mr. Chairman, also state dollars.
And state dollars. So if we're using their money, we have that requirement.
Right.
Our policy here is just mimicking pretty much that language that is required by.
Okay. Does this policy make prevailing wage a requirement for the county in their bids?
This policy does not make it a requirement. This is when prevailing wage applies. This is how it is paid.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
When I saw that article in the paper, I quickly got concerned. I thought he's made a very good comment there. And they were making some, alluding to the additional cost that was never thrown out by anybody here, even though the Chronicle kind of thought they were quoting somebody. I immediately contacted Bonnie. I've done a number of projects with Eggleston Sewer over at schools, and so I was concerned about that comment, but it didn't come from anybody here. I don't know where they got that information. I question it myself. But if we use state and federal money, we
Right,
have that requirement.
I understand we have that. But this made it sound like it would be a requirement for county projects. And I couldn't, when I talked to Mr. Mahoney and with Administrator Hammersley, she told me that there really will be no difference at all in a project having prevailing wage or not having prevailing wage. That's why I wondered why we would even bother to have it in here.
As Commissioner Derazinski stated, prevailing wage is required by federal and state law, and the county has an ordinance that requires any project over $100,000 prevailing wage would apply.
Jim, can I ask, where is that? Is that in the board rules?
It's an ordinance.
It's in purchasing.
Some purchasing ordinance.
That some board in the past
Yes.
put forward and passed. So we have if somebody wanted to rescind it.
I believe, Bob, if you can recall Mr. Mangione? Yeah. I believe that was where this thing originated. Yeah, no, that originated before that. Much before that. We are just revamping that. But I remember him speaking
To a responsible contract.
yes.
Mr. Chair, it's been my understanding that many times we run into problems with the subcontractors. And I noticed in the column that talks about the prevailing wage, they're requiring the subcontractors to get the information and present it as a part of our bid. So if it is indeed a part of the bid, we should be looking at it, but they're the ones, from my understanding, the ones that's where the violations normally occur. And we need to be on top of that to make sure that that's a part of that bid package.
That's the purpose of this policy.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Yeah, that is that the debarment, even that issue that I believe you brought up, is if they're using unqualified subcontractors, we have the right and the power to eliminate those. Am I saying that right, Ted? Debar is the word.
My concern is that a contractor that's not paying prevailing wage would be considered for debarment. And that's what this says. And I don't see the advantage, according to the people that I talked to that are sitting here today, of prevailing wage, so I don't know why we would have it in here. I guess I don't understand why you have it in here.
Charles, if I may?
I think what they're trying to speak to is there's federal and state guidelines that guide this matter where a prevailing wage must be a part of that ordinance.
And I
What this
understand that for
policy
the federal
does is it continues to help enforce that. We've had cases in the past where we've had a contractor who's actually put in a bid that says this is what he's going to do and follow these ordinances and guidelines when they actually didn't. And then we had subs that were getting paid that were not qualified to be paid or getting paid under the prevailing wage standard. When we have qualified people to be able to do that. And some of the advantage that you're talking about too is when you look at some of the organizations or workers that are being paid prevailing wage, the reason why they're asking for that also is they're highly qualified and trained in those instances. You can get subs that are really not qualified or certified or licensed that quote unquote has a certain company that will perform work, and then you get inadequate work. So we're also paying for, we're getting what we're paid for.
But there's also very qualified people out there that don't pay prevailing wage too. And I think this eliminates them. And a lot of those are right here in this county, and they're individuals that have 3 or 4 people that work for them that might be a subcontractor for a very small portion of it. And I can see that prevailing wage in that situation would be a detriment not only to that business, but to the county as far as expenses go.
But I think you have to look at the fact that when you're talking prevailing wage, you're talking ordinances that you have to follow. That's not something you skate by. It's just like if the government says that you have to pay $10 an hour with federal funding, then you have to do that. So it's not a question of whether we can or can't, it's making sure that we do follow that policy. It's an option when you don't have to follow a federal guideline, then what you're saying would be correct.
But aren't you, by this policy, aren't you taking away our option?
No, we're clarifying what the government has already said we must do.
Well, I don't know why we would have to clarify it if the government has already said we have to do it. That's my concern.
They
If it's
clarify it
already,
for the county, not for the federal, but for the county.
Mr. Chair, the purpose of why this is in this policy is not because it will be followed for every project. The purpose that this is in here is to clarify how we will pay prevailing wage as Muskegon County when it applies to that project. And so it is in here because we need to have it up front and center for when we do it, this is how we will do it. It does not imply that we will do it for every single project.
And it also, if please correct me if I'm wrong, it puts a little teeth in this in the local. When you depend upon the state and the federal to impose this debarment, this prevailing wage, that gets a little remote. I do recall an asbestos issue that stopped us dead in our tracks on a project, and it became an issue. People who were the low bidder were not. Did not have the expertise that we needed to get this project moving.
And Commissioner, I think it also, along with your point, clarifies the fact that we had the same type of issue come up in a previous major contract, and the prevailing wage was not being paid. We stopped our orders and we didn't pay those things. But then the next project, that contractor came back again, and that's why I say I think it upset some of the commissioners. And, we had to get this figured out, but we didn't have this policy in place, so we didn't have a debarment process set up to make those things happen. But we did make some agreements to make sure everything worked out. But this clarifies it more, and I think, like you say, gives it a little bit more teeth so that contractors will adhere to the bids that they put in.
Josh, you're looking a little bewildered back there. Anything you want to add? We need a motion to suspend the rules. If not, Has it been explained to your satisfaction? You're the one dealing with it. We have a motion to suspend the rules. Okay, we have a motion left. Oh, okay.
I didn't have anything specifically I wanted to add, John Warner, the Public Works Department, but if you had any specific questions regarding this, I deal with it probably more than most folks around here.
No, I just wondered if you had anything to add.
When it comes to the larger projects, we always are on top of it, making sure that they are paying the prevailing wages that they're supposed to be. Mary B checks the wage schedules, and if there's a problem, either her department or our department will deal with that. So yeah, there have been some instances in the past where the contractors have it. And in general, we get that corrected very quickly. If not, then those contractors don't work for us anymore.
Back in '93, we just took care of that.
Yes.
Yeah, we're trying to fix that.
What?
I think we got it.
Thank you. I'd like to have. Okay, thanks, Jerry.
And I would like to say that I did have a question, and Mary B got me all the information and made so that I understood that part of it too. I just have a real concern about including that part of it in this proposal. If everybody else is comfortable with it, then.
Yes, Mr. Mahoney.
In terms of the prevailing wage, when contractors bid and they're using prevailing wage, or we have a requirement for prevailing wage, what we want to do is make sure that those contractors are not cheating in the sense of not paying prevailing wage and pocketing the rest of the money, even though their bid was for prevailing wage.
And I understand that, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. What I don't agree with is the fact that you would eliminate somebody because they had good work and good quality, but didn't pay prevailing wage.
Well, if they bid on a project and it was a prevailing wage project, it doesn't matter whether that's what they bid the project on.
Right.
Right, and that's my concern, is that they have to bid a way that they don't do business. That we would try and regulate how a business does their business to work for us. I have a concern about that. And I also have a concern that the prevailing wage that we're under right now, some of the people that we have that do the exact same thing out of the wastewater don't even get paid that. But we're gonna expect somebody else to come in and pay their people that to work for us.
If in fact it's a federal or state project, as Harrison's said, that's what we have to do.
So you're telling me on a county project, the prevailing wage, according to this, would not be a requirement?
Not necessarily. We have an ordinance in place that says it's $100,000 or more.
And I understand that, but according to this, you're asking us to approve right now, prevailing wage would not be a requirement.
If it's under $100,000.
We're not.
We don't.
We're voting on clarifying this in this policy. We're not voting on a prevailing wage policy.
Okay, so this does not,
No.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Also, if I understand this right, each county could have a different prevailing wage.
No.
Is it the same everywhere in
the
the state?
state sets it
No.
for each county.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. So if a Grand Rapids contractor is bidding over here, they'd use a different rate than, say, they would use in
They'd
Grand
have to
Rapids.
use the Muskegon prevailing wage.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
So they'd have to change their bidding. They wouldn't do the bidding.
Ted?
The state bill.
Oh, okay. I thought it was by county.
It is by county.
It is by county.
It is by county.
It's determined by the state, but the state determines it per county.
Yeah, by the cost of living or whatever they use. But this, when you go to the state website, you click on this county and it will show you each county all the way through. So each county has a different one.
But to reiterate, this change we're making does not deal specifically with the prevailing wage.
I guess I don't understand what exactly the change we're trying to make is.
Giving us authority to debar, clarifying that you don't qualify to bid on this contract for these reasons. It could be accounting structures, it could be, am I saying this right, Ken? There's a whole bunch, I mean, to bid on some projects, you better have the insurance, you better have the acceptable accounting procedures, and there is a number of things, you better have the expertise. And if you can't show that to us, we can reject your bid.
It's gotta be legal.
Yeah.
As does your history. Your history has to show that you've been following the prevailing wage rules and you haven't had any violations. It gives us more security in knowing that somebody's not trying to rip us off.
But just because they're not union and don't pay prevailing wage, doesn't mean they're trying to whip us up.
No, but my motion is on something totally different. My motion is on the language that was presented here before us today, to question those that are bidding on prevailing wage projects. It's not a is prevailing wage a good thing or a bad thing, or is it right or is it wrong? It's strictly on the language of being able to question those that are bidding on prevailing wage projects.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Just a quick point.
No. Yes,
Non-
sir.
Non-union and union contractors both bid on prevailing wage jobs.
Absolutely.
Right, right.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, one opposed. WM 13/01-06, approve the hold public hearing on February to accept citizen comments on Muskegon County Recreation Plan update.
Second.
Mr. Cross, Mr. Mahoney seconded that. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. WM 13/01-07, authorize board chair to sign contract with DTEC PI and Recovery LCC. Is there a motion?
Second.
Mr. Cross motioned and Mr. Mahoney seconded, and I think this one could use some explanation. I'm sorry, Bonnie.
This is a, I've been meeting with the public defenders on a monthly basis for probably a year now, and this is one of the things that was identified that is, as we refer to as low-hanging fruit, some things we can do to improve the public defender system. At this time, we request for information on private investigative services for investigation of public defender cases. We met with the public defenders and also had a discussion, the court administrators discussed this with the judges to change the process. This will centralize the investigation for public defenders, and how it changes the process is it will come through the Office of Administration as public defenders need investigators to look into their cases, and we will monitor it from the administration.
I think this is a huge step forward for this county. Any other?
I
Yes.
have a question. I remember when public defenders came and expressed an interest that was a hardship to them, but it seemed like I remember the sheriff saying that, you know, if they just came to him and told him what they needed, he would be able to supply some of those services.
That was in regards to the subpoenas.
That was, okay.
And the sheriff is now serving the subpoenas
Okay.
on behalf of the public defenders.
Okay. And is our prosecutor happy with this? Or,
The prosecutor is not involved with the public defenders, that's another branch of government.
all right, thank you.
Yes, Bob.
Maybe you explain this, and I missed it, but does this come out of the public defender? Like, if somebody has a contract, whatever the contract is, and they need a private investigator, does that come out of they have to?
No, it does not. There's a public defender budget in the county budget. There's an appropriation for public defenders, and there's a line item that it will come out of.
It's not out of their contract?
No, it's not out of their contract. It's separate from their contract.
Is that line item in the budget right now, or are we gonna have to add it?
No, the line item is in the budget.
It's in the budget, okay.
It's currently paid through that budget. This is just changing the process and not going through the judge's approval for investigations.
Mr. Nash?
I guess my concern, I'm just trying to see how this is actually going to play out to assist the public defenders.
They will investigate cases. At this point, they now have to request from the judge's investigation of cases.
So this will be automatic.
Yes, and they will, and all requests will come through administration so we can monitor and reconcile invoices.
Dean, did you have something you wanted to, okay. I saw you raise. Okay. Any other discussion? Charles?
And looking at this from, I think that's a decent idea. But I'm also wondering how we can possibly get some type of evaluation of public defenders.
One of the things I can say in meeting with the public defenders on a monthly basis, one of the initiatives that I'm looking at is changing the public defender model for Muskegon County, and I will be proposing something in the 2014 budget. Right now we have 12 public defender contracts, and those are managed by the public defenders in the courts, and looking at a different way of doing that may provide a improved evaluation of public defenders.
Yes.
One other question. It says in here that the cost of the service contractor will be reviewed on a monthly basis. If the cost of this has to be changed, will that have to come back here?
If we do not have the appropriation, it would, yes.
You have to amend the budget.
Okay, if we don't have the appropriation, so does that mean if there was enough money in the budget, you will just amend it without telling us, or?
If there's enough money in the budget, we would not have to amend it.
Okay, thank you.
I have one
Yes.
question, Mr. Chair, regarding the Recovery LLC. What does that consist of?
This is a one-person investigative office. So that's her, that is the individual's LLC that gives her the business. That's her business title as far as.
What is she recovering?
That is the name of her business.
Oh, that's her
Yeah.
business.
It's Detect PI, which I'm sure is Private Investigator and Recovery.
I understood that part, but I was wondering, is it information that she's gathering with that?
It's her title, so it's the title of her company.
Oh, okay.
Bonnie, you would approve these before any of this would be put into motion on an individual, or someone else would? If we wanted to use this service?
The way that the procedure will happen is an email will be sent to this company, copied to the administration office.
So you're aware of?
And we're aware of it happening, but we would not make any determination on whether a public defender case should or should not be investigated. We would leave that up to our public defenders.
And recently, we changed the public defender's system by appointing them to judges, and everything I've heard, that's been very successful in caseload handling.
I can't respond to that. I mean, I don't know. I would say that the future model will probably not be the same.
Okay, any other discussion? Yes, Charles?
I was just looking at the language here. It says pre-approve overnight. Who would be approving that?
Oh, pre-approved overnight or out-of-state expenses. That would be approved by my office.
Any others? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. WM 13/0108, approved revision to the county Muskegon purchasing policy in regard to tie bids.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Nash, supported by Mr. Mahoney. Any discussion?
How often, Mr. Chair, have we run into 5 years before? So having them quite frequently, is it more on our attention?
Yes, Bonnie.
The purpose of this is to mirror the federal and state guidelines and put that in our purchasing policy. We do not run into many tie bids, but this is something in federal purchasing policies for our MAT system and other federal dollars. This is the language that's in there. So rather than run two separate purchasing policies, we're bringing this into our purchasing policy so that we all follow the same consistent manner.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have one question. Is the only thing we're changing in this is in the case of a tied bid or quote, when all factors, including pricing, are considered equal, a coin toss shall be used to determine which of the tied bidders receive the reward?
We are adding that to our purchasing policy,
Okay,
yes.
okay, you're adding that to it, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, who flips the coin?
I would suspect the person that's opening the bids.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carried. WM 13/01-09, Prosecutor's Office, authorize prosecutor to initiate RFP process for collection agency services. Mr. Cross, seconded by Tony. All those, excuse me, any discussion? Yes, Charles.
I had a question. I noticed that at the top it had non-budgeted item. Is that right?
They do not have a collection agency at this time, so that would be correct.
I would think this is
Cost
expense,
neutral.
yeah, expense
It'd be cost
neutral,
neutral.
but revenue positive if it's successful. But it wouldn't cost us anything because it would be a percent basis, and the chances of recovering more dollars would be a plus for the county and the prosecutor's office. I believe I'm saying that right, Heath? After-
Oh, I see. So you're just
They're going
paying off that percentage.
Yeah, and so the collection agent, to change the budget would be, our hope, would be increased revenue, but no expenditures.
Yes.
Can I ask, where does that revenue go?
It would go into the general fund. The prosecutor's office is a general fund department.
And it would stay within the prosecutor's office?
It would, the line item would be in the prosecutor's
Okay,
office,
thank you.
yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, as you think about this and we talk about shared services, I know there are some municipalities, especially Muskegon Heights, that could use the collection services to help collect them, but they don't have one, and sometimes there are bills sitting there that if someone could work on them, we would get additional revenue. But if the county is going to have one, it would be nice to look at municipalities who might want to participate in this and pay a percentage for the collections. And everybody would benefit from it, the county and the municipalities who might want to do that.
I do believe we have a number of collection agencies representing different departments in the county.
The sheriff's office.
And this is just another avenue of trying to collect some delinquent money from the county. Yes.
Mr. Chair. Seems like we hire some people to do collections.
The courts did.
Did it not, I thought we hired them and then eliminated them later because it didn't work, or does anybody remember that?
We recently hired collection agency for Brookhaven, but we continued with that. I
No,
don't
we
think-
didn't hire some people in the,
Some of the departments have internal staff. District court has their own staff that does collection.
I'm wondering if that works. Does it work? Do we collect enough to, they're shaking their heads out there, I guess.
I know the sheriff uses and
Yeah, the sheriff has an
success
organization.
is limited, but it's revenue we may not have otherwise. And I know circuit court and district court do the same thing, right?
will this just be for stuff from the prosecutor's
Yes,
office then?
yes.
We make that people pay.
Any other discussion? Yes, Charles?
Well, I noticed our prosecutor was here, and I wondered if he wanted to speak towards this. And I also had a question, I was wondering what those certain misdemeanors were, and wondering if there's a way to get a listing of those, and what those charges will be.
DJ Hilson, Muskegon County Prosecutor. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Really what this is all about is, one, it's just sending out a bidding process. What we've discovered in our recent past in trying to create revenue sources is that we, like a lot of municipalities and the courts, are having a hard time collecting those monies. And I think the assessment is correct that this is purely a revenue-driven system. We're not asking the commissioners of the county for any additional money. You know, we would essentially be paying the collection agency whatever percentage they want in order to collect these fees, and ultimately it's a net profit. What we looked at is, as you can see right now, we're collecting less than 30% of the money that has been assessed to people through the court system. And we looked at it at a cost-benefit analysis, and the cost is less than what the benefit we're hoping will be. So, you know, to answer your question directly, Commissioner Nash, about the various misdemeanors, I can't, you know, every crime has an assessment, a fee assessed to it. Some of it is court fees, and there are limited crimes where the prosecutor's office is allowed to collect fees. For example, drunk driving cases. The statute mandates our ability to collect fees for prosecuting a drunk driving case. So a lot of what you see is from our drunk driving collections. And that's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head. Not every crime has an ability for us to collect. Now, I think we had a discussion recently that this board actually passed an ordinance that set up a fee schedule for the prosecutor's office to collect on certain crimes. Again, not every crime, but certain crimes. And we're currently dealing with the district court on that issue. So that would be part of it as well. In fact, if you want, I have a copy of that ordinance. In fact, it's probably available somewhere on our website that lays out, enumerates specifically the crimes that the ordinance covers. But those are just some examples of what we're collecting as a revenue source for the prosecutor's office.
And I was going to say too, you probably would have a listing of what you currently have that you're collecting for.
Yeah, we should. We should.
That would suffice, and I mainly look for that for education. Because,
sure.
We're trying to notify a lot of the youth in the area of the tragedies of getting involved with that system and the hardship that comes along with it too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Try to keep them informed and educated.
Okay, thank you. Any others? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. Is there any old business for this committee? Any old business? Is there any new business? Yes.
You know, the situation with hiring somebody to do collection, we have some other departments within the county that have some outstanding balances. I think it would be worth a while to get a review from the prosecutor's office down the road and see if that's really been a benefit to them, and maybe some of the other departments may want to look into a collection agency too. So.
Thank you. I had something I wanted to bring up, just in case. When I got up this morning, I wasn't sure. I studied the agenda again, see if there's something that was absolutely had to be done today. If we had such an inclement weather day, or there was something or nothing to be on the agenda, how would you, because of an emergency, Ted, maybe it's a question for you, just cancel the meeting? It may have been difficult. I know this morning it would have been difficult for me to get out. Would the chair have that? I don't think we have a policy. I thought of my friend in the back row. If we were to cancel the meeting, I'm sure he would be disappointed.
I'm not aware of policy, Mr. Chairman, but I'm sure it will be easy enough to put one together.
Yeah, just a thought. You know, I mean, if there's very little on the agenda and us 9 people having to come as far as we come, do we need to add to the traffic issues that are, and for other reasons? And I don't know if it had ever crossed anybody else's mind.
Sure it is. And that last stuff that I gave you, if you're, that sort of
Yeah.
includes that.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and okay.
It doesn't make sense, because we've got our sheriff telling people don't go out on the road unless you really have to, and then here we are heading out on the road to come to a meeting.
And so we'll blame it on the sheriff.
Yeah.
There you go. I got big shoulders.
Okay, is there any comment, any other new business? Is there any public comment on a new topic? Yes, Mr. Wright, please identify yourself.
My name is Jim Riley, and thank you for your kind thoughts. I was concerned also that you might cancel, understandably. The county, from my standpoint, does have 2 ways to communicate with the rest of us, and one is, of course, your agenda page on the county page, and then there's also the Twitter feed, which you can click on. But both of those require the citizen to dig into it and of course, update in the event that there's a late change. There was a time when, I believe it was Bonnie, had been collecting email addresses from those people who were interested in getting announcements with their email. And of course, these days, email comes from you, so it would be the latest, most recent bulletins. And of course, with so many smartphones and phones that can get internet access, I think that would be a nice policy. It certainly shouldn't be too onerous, just if a citizen requests that they be put on the email blast list. Similar, I'm sure, in the way that they would communicate to you in the event of a last-minute change or an agenda change and things of that sort. So I'd recommend that as something that you might want to consider. But I have another issue. There was some discussion about this article, or at least one of the articles that was written by the Mackinac Center, who were quite interested in the prevailing wage issue. And I would like to read just a couple of comments in the event you had not read the article, or perhaps you've read it and you don't remember the specifics. This is Chris Fisher, who is the president of the Associated Builders and Contractors in Michigan. Quote, I'm going to say prevailing wage would mean they pay about $2 million more. Muskegon County is really in no financial position to be spending $2 million more than they have to. Those are taxpayer dollars that could be used for any number of other things. I did call Jack Spencer, who wrote the article, and I asked him about the conversation that he had with Administrator Bonnie Hammersley. He stands very clearly behind what he wrote. He wrote the notes when he was in conversation with Bonnie, and I'll read them to you. On December 13th, Muskegon County Administrator Bonnie Hammersley told Michigan Capital Confidential, and this is not in quotes, that she'd prefer the prevailing wage ordinance not apply to the jail project. But in quotes, he writes, quote, my understanding is that if we don't have federal dollars in it, we don't need to use prevailing wage. We won't use it unless we have to because it's an administrative burden. It adds to the cost, end quote. So that information's easily gotten on Muskegon Pundit, it's easily gotten on Muskegon or at Mackinac Center. But I clearly would suggest that you don't need studies to know that if you allow qualified bidders to bid on your project, all qualified bidders, you're likely to pay less and you will have more bidders. If in fact you set up barriers that require them to do significantly more paperwork and have to pay higher wages, you're going to reduce the number of bidders. And in most cases, when you reduce the number of bidders, you do ultimately increase the cost. So we, the taxpayers here in Muskegon County, and certainly the Mackinac Center, are looking at this issue very closely. I would hope that you would consider, again, not so much the small changes you made today, but you made it very clear that it is eminently easy for you to make changes in the purchasing policy. You just made 2 of them today. So that policy can be changed in a whim, in a minute, and I would hope that you would reconsider this. This is an issue that is quite expensive, potentially quite expensive, and it's an issue that will not go away. Thank you.
Thank you. A minute and a half. Any other comments? Is there a motion to adjourn? We have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Bring it.